Roy and Charlotte Brooks. As noted earlier, they spent their lifetime protecting the natural beauty of the Door County Peninsula and sharing its magic through their teachings, writings, and personal charm. As partners in nature, they built the Regis Sanctuary into a center for conservation, education, research, and advocacy. They educated and inspired citizens of Door County and the state through their many research efforts, lectures, and nature walks, books, and newspaper columns. I'd like to recognize the nominators who submitted the materials for the Lukes. Roy Philly and Tim Stone. Where are they? I'd like them to quickly stand up. The effort to hold thank you, Roy and Tim. They've also helped organize other things for this induction. Our speakers for this ceremony will actually start at the bottom. Beth Bartoli was in the car ready to come here 3 weeks ago, but she has other commitments today as a person who works for the Newport State Park. We do, however, have Vicki Medlin, and we have a video from Roy and Charlotte Lukes, of Roy and Charlotte Lukes, and Tim Byers cannot be here, but he sent a video. Tim Byers, by the way, is program manager, retired from Wisconsin Center for Environmental Ed at W. Stevens Point, and Vicki Medlin is assistant director from the Coffrin Center for Biodiversity at the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay. With that, I'd like to turn over the stage to Vicki, who will carry the rest of that presentation forward. Vicki, where are you? Come on.
Thanks, Joe. I know Charlotte and Roy best through their work in conserving the top point and the adjacent Regis Sanctuary in Bailey's Harbor. But it's also been one of the fortunate thousands that have written and read their articles and books, and most precious to me, to have walked the trips with them. They were not loud talkers. They never lectured. But Roy and Charlotte still are consummate teachers. Roy, who can draw you into an understanding of the importance of how each part of nature fits into the conservation of natural areas. They are probably best known for their combined efforts that amounts to over 80 years together in conservation education, including programs for the Regis Sanctuary, the Clearing, Door County Land Trust, nature centers and parks throughout eastern and northeastern Wisconsin. And they even ran their own outdoor education school, Nature-Wise, from 1993 to 2005. Roy definitely had a way with words. And together, he and Charlotte published over 3,000 nature articles and 5 books, written by Roy and edited and even illustrated by Charlotte. They took thousands of photographs, which have been used in publications and shown in galleries. I'll show you just a few of those. Here's Roy taking a photograph of a hawk-owl. So just outstanding, really beautiful photographs. I once saw a giant oil painting of this very bird in a gallery somewhere in Door County about 8 years ago, maybe. And the title of the painting was Roy. So, I have worked with Roy and Charlotte since I began my career at UW. I forget exactly, but I think the first time I met them, they were bringing us a bag of dead birds. They were great that way. This is actually a really wonderful gift to a university museum because consummate naturalists that they also provided us with their notes, where the birds were found, what dates they were found, what the species were. Those carefully noted observations are what turns those little bird bodies into valuable specimens that will serve generations of researchers. They led hikes and taught classes. They did many bird surveys, but every walk they took, they were collecting valuable information on the species that they saw, information on the importance and value and the health of the ecosystems that they were in. And scientists continue to use this data today. UW Green Bay professor and director of the Kauffman Center for Biodiversity, Bob Powell, wrote that Roy and Charlotte have been influential in a place where influence is immensely consequential. Much of Door County is still a wild and beautiful place because of their influence. Roy and Charlotte have been called, quite accurately, Door County's conservation ambassadors. They work to build personal connections with people to instill in so many the same love of the land that they had. They work tirelessly to ensure that some of the gems of Door County remain wild, including the Ridges Sanctuary, Chalk Point Natural Area that I just showed you, Newport Beach State Park, the Mink River, Peninsula State Park, Whitefish Dune, and many others. Roy and Charlotte played a direct role in the protection of several of these natural areas. Roy and Charlotte knew Emma Toft and ensured that the Ridges Sanctuary that she and others had established in the 1930s thrived. Due to their careful stewardship, the sanctuary became a destination for people from across the globe who sought refuge in its cool forest ridges and its sunny swales. Roy worked closely with the Nature Conservancy, UW Green Bay, and Emma to preserve her homestead at Chalk Point. She was a very particular person, and she wanted the land preserved. She didn't want anybody digging up the property. She didn't want any modification of the property. And Roy was able to work with her to have those properties preserved in the 1960s the way she wanted them. And then due to he and Charlotte's careful stewardship, that sanctuary, the Ridges, became a really important location as one of the last remaining ridge and swale complexes. Chalk Point, which was Emma's homestead, is now a state natural area and is recognized by the National Park Service as a national natural landmark. Roy and Charlotte more recently served as Chalk Point's caretakers and have done a wonderful job making sure that that property remains the way that Emma wanted it to be. And they established an active Friends of Chalk Point group that helps protect and maintain the natural area and has even supported student research on endangered dwarf Lake Iris. And the group that you see here, these people are just amazing. They have gone out in some of the most treacherous landscapes that I think, pulling out buckthorn and other invasive species. They've worked to keep the cabins beautiful and maintain the trails. They've just done a wonderful job and provide docents for people walking the trails as well, in addition to also supporting our students at UW Green Bay. So much of the areas that they've helped preserve are now part of the 11,440 acres that make up the Door Peninsula coastal wetlands, now recognized as a globally important wetland conservation area under the International Ramsar Convention. I suspect that they have walked nearly every one of those acres over the years at some time. Their efforts in conservation led them to serve on a number of organizations, often in leadership roles, including the Nature Conservancy, the Stewardship Committee of the Main River Estuary in northern Door County, the Wisconsin Society for Ornithology, and the Big Tree Project for Door County. Roy and Charlotte have been recognized with numerous awards over the years, including some that speak directly to their dedication to the work at hand in education and conservation, including 2 Bronze Passenger Pigeon Awards for significant contributions to Wisconsin ornithology, the Wisconsin Society for Ornithology Lifetime Achievement Award in 2015, and the Gathering Waters Conservancy Lifetime Achievement Award that will be mentioned in the upcoming video. Dean Lisking and Eileen Liddy of Educational Television Productions of Northeast Wisconsin, the ETV have produced an oral history of Roy and Charlotte's memories of the Ridges and of Emma Talk for the 75th anniversary of the Ridges. And that's available on DVD for people who might be interested in it. This is a short video that they made that details Roy and Charlotte's relationship and their passion for nature.
Is a homegrown Wisconsin talent that is taught in many Door County schools and nature's classroom. The Kewanee High School graduate has had over 2,500 articles published, and his images of Door County's habitat has provided an education for countless people.
I started in, I think, October of 1968. And I got the idea for these stories, and I went in to chat with Chan Harris one day, who was the editor of The Advocate in Sturgeon Bay. And I said, what do you think of me doing a weekly story for The Advocate on nature? He says, it's not a bad idea. Let's give it a try for a couple of weeks and see how it goes.
Roy's weekly stories have become a part of the Door County culture. He did not establish his legacy alone. It was during the summer of 1971 that he developed his best story. Roy was living at the Ridges Lighthouse in Bailey's Harbor, working as a naturalist at the Ridges Sanctuary. Some days his work was educational in nature. Some days the work was manual labor. On this day, a chance encounter with a young lady from Milwaukee on the trails blossomed into a relationship that has lasted for over 4 decades.
His job that day was building bridges. He was nailing decking on one of the far bridges. So he had his paint-stained jeans or pants on. He had his old army shirt that he had cut the sleeves off and the strings were hanging, and his hat that had paint stain on. The knees were out on his jeans, but paint on his hat. That's how we met. Eventually, we got to be friends. And on New Year's, he invited me up for New Year's weekend. We watched the Rose Bowl parade, and he said, "Wouldn't it be great if you lived up here all year round?" And I said, "Where? The Nelson Motel?" That was the only motel open. He said, "No, we're at the rangeland." I said, "Yeah, but won't the neighbors talk?" So he asked me to marry him on New Year's Day, 1972.
The relationship bloomed into a great partnership in all aspects of their life. Charlotte helped Roy with his work with the Ridges Sanctuary, along with his writing, and Roy helped Charlotte with her mushroom research.
It took me a while to get in the groove, but I did help with Ridges stuff pretty much right away, with newsletters and things like that. And I realized, just being with Roy out in the Ridges all summer, that he knew just about everything. He knew trees, and he knew a lot about insects and flowers and birds and animals. And I finally found something that he wasn't quite as knowledgeable about, and that was the mushrooms. So I decided to use that as my key nature study.
Charlotte has identified over 600 types of different mushrooms in Door County for her nature study, while Roy provides the beautiful imagery. Over the years, the trips to find mushrooms have yielded just as many unique stories.
Anytime we're in the woods with them, someone's like, oh, Roy, hey, I have to ask you a question. It doesn't matter where we are, who we're with, somebody knows him anywhere. Because he's so gracious and will always stop and explain and talk and make sure they know the correct terms or what they're asking about. And he's the teacher still. He'll always be the teacher. In fact, I call him Sensei. So, because he's my teacher, he's my life teacher.
Their marriage to each other, their work, and the environment is dedication at its finest. Roy, with the help of Charlotte, has written 5 nature-inspired books and published thousands of articles for Door County publications, like the Peninsula Pulse.
Even before he was doing his stories on the computer, we had an IBM Selectric, and he would type up the stories, and I would proofread them. And now with his stories with the Pulse, that he writes on the computer, I do the proofreading, and then we work at choosing which photos are best to go with the story. And with the Door County Living magazine, the same thing. He writes it, and I proofread it, and then we pick out the best pictures. And then I use Photoshop to adjust the pictures.
She's much better at technology than I am. But we make a lot of use of the computer. The number of images I've taken, thousands, I don't know. But we have them categorized by subject very nicely. Charlotte does a marvelous job of that, so we can find these images quite easily.
I can't imagine coming up, being able to do that week after week and be so creative and so enlightening. It's just amazing. They're such a special couple.
It's just so fortunate that Roy had this wonderful talent of doing these weekly letters for the local newspapers, these nature notes, and our Charlotte has been such a help to him to get them sped through, get all the writing done and corrections, and she's just been so wonderful herself. I'm amazed with her background as a dental assistant, how she's locked on to nature and how she knows it so well. And they're just a great partnership, and just have this wonderful affection for all facets of nature.
The couple has always shied away from the spotlight, but in the fall of 2014, their work was recognized on a grand level. The couple received a well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Award from Wisconsin's Alliance for Land Trust.
We are just so grateful to be awarded for doing something that we love to do. And Roy flunked retirement, so he's going to continue writing. He's been writing weekly nature stories for Door County newspapers for 46 years. And it's just, when you study nature, you never stop learning. You're always exploring and discovering new things. So we're very thankful, and thank you all for coming out tonight.
I thought it was overwhelming event, and the thing that impressed me was knowing that so many other people out there in the audience were doing this that Charlotte and I have been trying to do for so many years too. Preserving the land and working hard to keep it in good shape, and being good stewards and teaching others to do the same. And to preserve a lot of these areas takes a lot of effort, a lot of people. We feel we're just a small part of it.
Unfortunately, Beth Bartoli, who you just saw in the video talking about her sensei, and Tim Byers, longtime friend of Roy and were not able to be here. But Tim has recorded his contribution for you to hear.
Hi, I'm Tim Byers. All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown, season spinning round again, the years keep rolling by. My wife Cindy and I met Roy and Charlotte Lucas in 1985, fresh out of the UWSP College of Natural Resources, ready to work in the field. You know the old proverb about when the student is ready, the teacher appears? That was us and them. But they were more than that. They were teachers, sure, but they were also mentors, role models, friends, and ultimately family. The teaching part was apparent in their activities and their patience with us as we learned the classic ways of field naturalists: careful observation, research backup to verify, and appropriate exposition for visitors on site. In short, pay attention, know it cold, and relate it back to your audience. We followed them around as much as we could, notebooks at the ready, furiously recording tidbits. Being with them was an adventure, and paying attention to the world around you. Mentoring was second nature to them. It never made you feel as though you didn't know something. They always teased the information out of you with gentle questioning. The end result was that you felt good about yourself and retained the information better because you had to arrive at the answer yourself. They personified what Lao Tzu taught us. A leader is best when people barely know he exists. When his work is done, his aim fulfilled, they will say, "We did it ourselves." They were multidimensional role models. As noted, they showed us how to be professional naturalists in the classic mold of Teal, Carson, Leopold, and Bentley. They were social role models as we adapted to life in Door County in the winter. Without their guidance and endorsement, our first winter would have been colder than it was, though I will argue with Roy and Charlotte about who lived in the coldest house in Door County. I contend that the Tischler farmhouse we lived in rural Egg Harbor was colder than the Ridges Lighthouse. We had waves in the toilet when the wind blew. Here are some examples of their modeling. Charlotte is a terrific bird, both by sight and sound. Bird counts, though, are her specialty. She organized and compiled them like nobody else. So naturally, we sometimes had fun with that. My friend Lincoln McGurk and I were often paired for bird counts, and as we would toddle around the county, we'd have some fun with the tally sheets. We could record bundles of sticks as caught in a fence, or a pile of branches that might be soaking away at the far edge of the field would get sharded with a double take. Once we raced to Casperson's funeral home in Sister Bay to be the first to record the 300 mallards there. Charlotte took our kidding in good stride and recorded our more accurate sightings. One time, our good friend Rob Murray was doing a Sunday early surveyor program at Whitefish Dune State Park, and he enlisted Roy as an axeman for the 1830s reenactment. The surveying team was in the woods, running a line, shouting out survey marks and chain details when they intercepted a tour in progress at the park. This was by design, of course. The tour stopped on the trail as Roy, the lead axeman, came bursting from the bush and completely off script shouted out, "I haven't seen a woman in 60 days!" As a couple, they showed how to do it too. It's a wonder that a well-bred Milwaukee girl, who was interviewed personally by Herb Cole for a job as a young woman, asked her. And this funny little guy in the woods got together. They obviously did and thrived, but there's one more Roy and Char story to tell. They were talking about finding bike tires in their garage. Charlotte asked where they were. Roy said, "Hanging on the wall." Charlotte said, "Which one?" Roy said, "How many walls do we have in the garage?" We had to turn our way, suppress our giggles on that one. But seriously. Their modeling in teachers, as teachers in general, led directly to Cindy becoming a classroom teacher and making it her profession. As she said in a letter to the Lucases, "I don't know if you realize what an influence you have had on my life. I am who I am today because of the time I spent with you. Friendliness was not a problem for Roy and Charlotte, not just to us, but to anyone they encountered. They were easily met and assumed the best about people as they got to know them. This naturally made you want to be the best person you could be, as it was unthinkable to do something that would make them disappointed in you. Sounds like your parents, doesn't it? Which brings us to family. In a letter to Roy near the end of his life, my wife, Cindy, said it best. I love you, Roy. I will miss you when you are gone from this life, but I will see you in flower blossoms and the dragonflies, and will hear you in the call of the warblers and the gentle lapping of the water and the warm summer singing. And so here we are, bestowing a richly deserved honor on two richly deserving people who showed their consummate professionalism, but also their consummate humanity as they lived their truths as teachers, mentors, role models, friends, and family. All my life's a circle, sunrise and sundown, seasons spinning round again, years keep rolling by. Congratulations, Roy, and congratulations, Charlotte.
As Tim and the video by Dean and I illustrated, Roy and Charlotte have accomplished much and made great contributions to the appreciation and conservation of one of the most beautiful and unique places in Wisconsin. But I like to think the way they did it as partners allowed them to accomplish more than they each would have alone. Fungi has long been Charlotte's passion. The depth of her knowledge about these beautiful and fascinating organisms is impressive. I've been fortunate to work with her to share her work on fungi by putting some of the over 600 mushroom species, 601. How many mushrooms?
No, actually 575 foods identified.
Oh, okay. Almost 600. Soon to be 600 in Door County on the UW Green Bay's Conference Center for Biodiversity website. Roy took a lot of the photos for Charlotte, but Charlotte also took many of the photos as well. Roy loved trees. He wrote in his first book, Once Around the Sun, "You've never talked with a white pine? Man, you haven't lived." He spent many of the last years of his life documenting the champion trees of Door County. Every time, I'm going to get very clumped, every time I drive past that champion cottonwood in Union, that's right off of 57, I think they're there. The trees certainly make the forest, but trees need support. And I find it really interesting that it's the mycorrhizal fungi that provide that support to trees by providing water and nutrients and by facilitating chemical communication pathways between trees that contribute to ecosystem stability and health. I find it quite delightful that this relationship is an apt metaphor that captures Roy and Charlotte's relationship. By working together, their actions became synergistic, allowing them to make major contributions to the conservation of one of Wisconsin's most beautiful regions. Roy often introduced Charlotte as a partner in nature, but every time I work with her, I leave thinking of her as a force of nature. She's an organizer and mobilizer, as well as a talented naturalist who has tirelessly worked to promote and conserve the beautiful places in Door County. She was instrumental in the early promotion of the Ridges Sanctuary and the establishment and continued success of the document, often working behind the scenes, as she mentioned, writing and editing articles and newsletters, but also encouraging others to join in support of these organizations. Charlotte says, when you study nature, you never stop learning. I am pleased to ask Charlotte to come up now and accept this well-deserved recognition for her.
Thank you all for coming, and I just want to, first of all, thank Roy, Philly, and Tim Stone for all the work that they've done. It was probably a matter of a couple of years, and all the people who wrote letters in support of the nomination, and then the Hall of Fame. I thank them for accepting the nomination. Roy and I had almost 45 years together, and I learned so much from him all those years and enjoyed the times that we had together. I noticed in the list of honorees for the Hall of Fame that Roy really revered the first two, John Muir and Aldo Leopold. And when we met in the summer of '71 in fall, the first book that he loaned to me was Leopold's Sand County Almanac, and that really set my mind to what I wanted to do the rest of my life. I graduated from Marquette University with a, I went to the 2-year program. I didn't get a degree, but I served as a dental hygienist for 38 years while working with Roy at the Ridges, and so many people would tell me, "Oh, you know so much. How did you learn all of this?" And I said, "Well, I live with my teacher." And one of my patients in the office in Sturgeon Bay came in one day. I brought her into my room, and she was so excited that she saw some Napoleon gulls. And I said, "Oh, you know them by their first name." These are the Bonapartes that came through. 10 years ago, Roy's cousin was inducted into the Hall of Fame. Buzz Bazatny and Roy were only 4 days apart in age and grew up together in Kewanee. And Buzz Bazatny was the secretary of the DNR for quite a few years. And we got to know people who worked in the DNR, and we really appreciated Buzz's wonderful leadership. Roy, I think, brought that same feeling from his boyhood days in Kewanee when they lived close to the land. And I just am so appreciative of so many people who have supported us all these years in the work that we're doing. And I just thank you all again.
Thank you, Charlotte, for those great words, inspiration. And thank you, Vicki, for coordinating the rest of the presentations. At this point, we'll turn to the legislative citation by Representative Katrina Shanklin. I'm going to slip this in here. So this is the induction inductive plaque. If you haven't seen it, you can also see it over there on easels. And I might provide a good background for you to see the citation.
All right. Well, it's an honor to be here to present a citation on behalf of the state legislature, and I'll read part of it. Whereas every year, the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inducts a select group of individuals into the Hall of Fame to recognize the important contributions each has made to natural resource conservation in the state. And whereas Roy and Charlotte Luce have been chosen as 2018 Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame inductees for their lifelong dedication to documenting and protecting the natural beauty of Door County. And whereas Roy was a renowned nature writer, naturalist, photographer, teacher, and newspaper columnist, publishing 5 books on nature, including Once Around the Sun, a Door County journal. And whereas Charlotte continues to teach classes, lead hikes, and has excelled as a naturalist, teacher, and writer throughout her life and career, contributing scientific research and publications on the mushrooms of Door County. And whereas the Lukes have received nearly 30 awards from educational, literary, civic, and environmental organizations, including the Lifetime Achievement Award from Gathering Waters Conservancy, and awards from the Wisconsin Society of Ornithology, the Nature Conservancy, and UW Green Bay Center for Biodiversity. And whereas together, Roy and Charlotte authored over 3,000 columns chronicling Door County's nature in extraordinary detail, including temperature, wildlife seen and counted, rainfall, and seasonal bird arrivals. Now, therefore, the members of the Wisconsin State Legislature do hereby commend Roy and Charlotte Luce for their lifelong commitment to the land and its resources, and the legacy they leave, and honor them for their induction into the Wisconsin Conservation Hall of Fame.
Charlotte, if we get you to stand up again. Can everybody hear us? No. No? Anyway, you can figure out what we're doing. So, first of all, I'll let you do the presentation.
Thank you.
And in addition to the citation, we have a replica of the plaque that we present to the inductee. Of course, the plaque stays within the Hall of Fame. So here's something else for your wall, a lot of other awards. But as an exchange for that, I would like an autograph of this book that you and Roy put together. And the quotes that are added or included here were taken from this first book, Once Around the Sun. And as a commemorative, thank you for my own teaching kids one year. I realize we shared a lot of interest in the field of environmental and interesting.
Yeah, Roy worked so well with young people, and that was such an important part of his life, is teaching the young people to care about the earth.
Thank you, Shepard.
Thank you.